Art O'Cal and Jacob Wolf for ESPN Esports. An update on the LA Gladiators story, the video that we put out yesterday with David Pay, the head coach of the LA Gladiators, looking for other opportunities within the league, seemingly leaving LA Gladiators. It looks like the story has expanded from there. Jacob, you broke the news on ESPN.com. Why don't you catch us up on what you found out regarding the lawsuit and the settlement and where we stand today?
Yeah, so we broke yesterday that the Kroenke Sports and Entertainment Group will be building their own front office and that they've parted ways with Sentinels, the esports team that previously operated the Gladiators for the last 2 years. In regards to what David had posted and several of the others that I saw on social media that had worked for the Gladiators, I think that there's a lot of uncertainty about what their futures may be. And so now with sort of the Kroenkes starting anew, I think that a lot of these people who have worked in the Overwatch League for the past 2 years are, even if they're not out of jobs yet, are looking to find somewhere else.
So let's unpack that. So as part of the lawsuit settlement, Sentinels and KSE, Kroenke Sports and Entertainment, must separate, and they were together dealing with the Gladiators, Sentinels running it and KSE owning it. So that affects every employee top to bottom, but we're unsure what will happen with them.
Right. So there are people like coaching staff who are Overwatch specific, right, that are very much only for the Gladiators. And then there's people that work at Sentinels that do a little bit of everything. So they do Sentinels work and they do Gladiators work. Those people will, I would say, be largely unaffected. I think that there will be a little bit of trimming because the Sentinels won't need as much staff. So there may be some layoffs here in the future, unfortunately, and heart goes out to those people. But the people that work specifically on the Gladiators, I think that their futures are in flux, and what happens to them is really undetermined. And I think that needs to be determined soon. I think that the Kroenkes have not figured out what's next for their Overwatch team. They are still interviewing people even now to build out this front office, and yet the Overwatch offseason and even more importantly, the Call of Duty offseason start very, very soon. So it's time to get it together quickly. We're 3 months from the end of the year, and it will be February before you know it.
So let's talk about there's multiple sides of this. There's a Sentinel side, there's the KSE side, the Gladiators as well on the KSE side there. So what names have you heard that have been linked to possibly joining the Gladiators organization? You mentioned a former Echo Fox executive in your article. Are there any other names that are out there right now?
None that I'm aware of that would be top candidates for this job. Jared Jeffries, who you were alluding to, he is the former president of Echo Fox. He was terminated a few weeks ago when Echo Fox lost their spot, when Riot Games took the spot away from them in the League of Legends Championship Series. Jared previously worked for the Denver Nuggets. He's a former NBA player and then worked in as the director of player personnel. The head of the Denver Nuggets is Josh Kroenke. So it's the same sort of people that know each other already and that exist. And I think that there's a world where Jared is going to be their top executive. I don't think that's necessarily decided yet. And I think that both Josh Kroenke and Michael Neary, who's a college friend of his that is now working on this project, I think both of them are going to vet all the candidates in the next couple of weeks and start making some decisions. But Jared is somebody that certainly came up in multiple conversations I had.
I know you mentioned the timetable there a couple of weeks. Is there a firm timetable regarding some of these decisions, or do we not know thus far?
No, I don't think that we know exactly when all of this will be decided. But again, we're entering an off-season period for both games and not too long of a time frame. You know, like we see people already tweeting about Call of Duty free agency. And we anticipate that the Overwatch free agency will start shortly after the end of the season, which is the end of the month, 29th. And so looking at that, I think that it's got to be done quickly, right? Because you got to have people that make some very crucial decisions for the Los Angeles Gladiators and this Los Angeles Call of Duty team of theirs here in the next few weeks, really. So I think that if they don't find someone in the next few weeks, I'll be a little surprised, but there's no guarantee that they will.
There is news out there that the Los Angeles Call of Duty team, a patent was filed for the name Gorilla. So that's one of the names that is out there for this Call of Duty team. What about the players, the Los Angeles Gladiators players? What do you think happens? Will we see a full roster shakeup, or could we see some of these players return?
You know, this is a team that just came in essentially fifth, and I think that that's a huge deal, and that I think it'd be silly to necessarily scrap it and start brand new. But who knows? Maybe you bring in coaching staff or executive staff that do want to start over and do want to try to build something bigger or want to go international and try to recruit talent from some of the other regions and contenders. And who knows? I mean, I think that the Gladiators team should at least build around some of its best pieces because it had success this season, not just on the not on the play side as well. I think that from a marketing and business perspective, they had a pretty good season as well compared to other teams. And so I wouldn't necessarily start anew, but I do think that they just may.
On the Sentinels side, of course, that team has seen success with Buga, the singles Fortnite World Cup champion. So that name does ring true in terms of media attention. So Sentinels has had a lot of eyeballs on it. What happens with them now, and which esports do you think Sentinels will be involved in still?
So I spoke to Rob Moore yesterday, who's the CEO of Sentinels, and he assured me that they're going to continue doing what they're doing, and that they've raised capital for themselves, and that they will continue to be a big player in Fortnite and Apex Legends. Their Apex Legends team, I finished fifth, I believe, in Poland this past weekend, and Buga obviously is the Solos World Champion, and there are other people in their team that are very successful in Fortnite, and so I think that for them that will be their focus now. But he sort of alluded to expanding into more games, and what those will be, I'm unsure, but they certainly had the experience. This is a team that used to be in League of Legends, known as Phoenix One, and they've been the operators of the Gladiators, so they're not strapped for experience. They certainly have it. I think that it's about finding the right opportunity, and unfortunately right now for them, I think the opportunity cost a lot, which is why a partnership with the Kroenkes originally made a lot of sense.
So the last question I have here is regarding the Kroenkes. After this split, after all of this news and this dust settles, do you think there will be apprehension for people in esports to work with the Kroenkes, or do you think they'll be able to get over this and it'll be business as usual?
I think that it will be business as usual. This conflict, depending on what side you believe, right? There was a lawsuit filed by Rob Moore, and some people see that as sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. If what Rob Moore alleged in that lawsuit, that they weren't paying him the operation fee, and that they weren't honoring his joint venture agreement, then maybe you do see it as a negative on the Kroenkes. But I think that at the end, the Kroenkes are a family that have a lot of experience in sports. Stan Kroenke, the owner of the group, is a very successful real estate investor, and Anne Kroenke, his wife, is the heir to Walmart. These are people who have more money than God, and I think that when you are someone in esports, that you will want to work with people like these people, because they will be able to fund ventures in a way that others cannot.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Sentinels and KSE moving forward. I think that we will see two separate paths that will certainly lead to success, because there is success surrounding them already. Jacob Wolf's story is up right now at espn.com/esports.